Hey you guys, welcome to another video. If you're new to my channel, my name is Dina Shantae and welcome. So I said when I have a little bit more of free time, I'm gonna go ahead and squeeze in this part 2 to how to do an assessment, because I have been like really busy and on go, and I said I need to go ahead and make this part 2 so I don't get too far gone to where I forget to do part 2 of how to do an assessment. So I said today, since I have time to sit down, it's the weekend, it's a Saturday, I'm gonna go ahead and just do part 2. So part 2 goes back to part 1. So if you have not watched part 1 of how to do an assessment, you need to go back and watch that video, and that way it'll catch you up on today's video on part 2 of how to do an assessment. Okay. I think in the first video, I told you all like what an assessment is, what an assessment is not. And then I also broke down like the different sections of an assessment. Well, I didn't break it down in detail. That's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to break down each section in today's video, and then that'll really be it on how to do an assessment. Like a basic biopsychosocial assessment, it doesn't really contain that many parts. Now, when you get to like substance abuse assessments or parental fitness assessments, domestic violence assessments, trauma assessments, those are the assessments that dive a little deeper. But I just wanted to show you all how to do a basic biopsychosocial assessment. Part 2, this is part 2. So we're gonna start with the presenting problem. And in this section of your biopsychosocial with the presenting problem, the client is just coming to you telling you why they want to seek help or seek treatment. And you want to make sure this is in the client's own words. You don't want to add nothing to it, and you don't want to take nothing away from it. You want to add exactly what the client is telling you that they're coming to seek treatment or therapy for. Okay, so an example I put here is the client reports feeling depressed for the past 3 months, stating, I feel like I can't get out of bed most of the time. These symptoms are impacting my work attendance and my motivation to do life. It's affecting my relationship with my significant other and my friends. So that is an example of a presenting problem. What the client is coming to you, telling you themselves why they need help. Okay. The next section is the mental health history section of a biopsychosocial. You want to list the client's past diagnosis, their past treatment, if they've ever been in a hospital, family history of mental illness, medications and the responses to the current medications, if they're taking any type of medications. So in the mental health history part, it's just telling you about, the only thing you have to put in this section is, you know, if they have any previous diagnosis from another provider, if they gotten therapy maybe somewhere else, if they've gotten any type of like outpatient treatment from another provider. That is what you want to put in the mental health history. If they've been in a psychiatric hospital, how many times and where, make sure you're specific, how many times and where. And then you also want to include like the family history of mental illness. If anybody in their family has a history of mental illness, I don't care whether it's a sister, uncle, great-grandmother, great-grandfather, mom, dad, because as you know, mental health can be hereditary. So you want to see if there's anybody else in their family that has a mental health history or diagnosis. Okay. So that is the mental health history part of a biopsychosocial assessment. And then you're going to go into the medical history. Okay. That is where you are asking about any chronic illnesses, any surgeries, How is your sleep? How is your appetite? Do you have any pain issues? Do you have any type of side effects from your current medications? If they're taking any type of medications, are you having any type of side effects? So the medical history is very important because it's kind of like, yeah, they might have a mental diagnosis of depression or anxiety or schizophrenia, bipolar, a co-occurring diagnosis. I get that, but you also want to make sure you're ruling out medical first. And then that'll also tell you like if they go see their PCP as, you know, they should. So you want to gather medical history to rule out medical first, okay? So the next section that you want to talk about is substance use history. And that is where you want to ask about, you know, substances like alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, any type of substance that is out there. You want to ask them about, and you want to ask about like their current use, the frequency, the impact that it has on their life, if they've sought like any past treatment for their substance use history. You want to ask them, I have here, have you ever felt like you should cut down? Do you use to cope with stress? Does anyone ever express their concern about your use? And does it have any impact on like your relationship with your family, your friends, your work, your school? Have you ever gotten into any trouble, any legal trouble from using substances? So you want to make sure you're as detailed as possible with the substance use history, because that's also going to play a role in if the individual has a co-occurring diagnosis or not, okay? And co-occurring diagnosis is mental health and substance abuse combined. Then you're going to get into your family and your social history. You want to include their early childhood, their relationships, their social supports, their current living situations. How was they raised? Was they raised in a good household? You want to kind of like ask them to describe their childhood, because believe it or not, and I try to tell my clients this a lot, your childhood and your upbringing kind of dictates how you are as an adult. You know, it plays a role in how you are as an adult, how you was raised, your upbringing, your home environment, you know, like person and environment. Who were you around? What did you observe? What did you see? So all of that needs to be included in the family and social history of your biopsychosocial assessment, okay? And then the next part is trauma history. So you're going to ask them any physical or sexual abuse. Have you ever experienced anything frightening or overwhelming? Have you ever had any experiences that still affect you to this day? So you want to make sure that you're gathering information about trauma. And then the next section I have here is educational and occupational functioning. So you want to ask their highest education level, their work history, current employment, financial status, workplace stress. So you want to dive in more about asking them about like their education and their work functioning, because you know sometimes work can play a role. Well, y'all know as social workers, work can definitely play a role in your daily living, functioning activities and how you are on a day-to-day basis. So you want to see if they may have like any stress related to work, and if so, can we talk about that? Can we dive into that a little bit more? Can you describe what it is that you are stressed out about work, okay? And then you have your mental statics exam, where you're asking them about like, or where you are observing their appearance and their speech, their mood, their behavior. Like, are they calm? Are they agitated? Are they pacing back and forth? How was their affect? Is it normal? Are they depressed? Do they look sad? Do they have like a flat affect, or where they're showing like completely no emotions while you're talking to them? You want to observe like their thought process and their insight and their judgment on what's going on in their life as well. An example I have here is client appears disheveled with poor hygiene, maintains limited eye contact, and demonstrates slow speech. Mood is reported as down and affect is flat. Okay, that's just an example that I have here. Was something that I would write in my biopsychosocial assessment. I've been saying biopsychosocial assessment so much. Sometimes I feel like I'm tripping and rambling over my own words. But nonetheless, that is an example of what I would put in my assessment. And then the next part is you want to ask about thoughts of self-harm, harm to others, and if they did, what was their plan? What was the intent? What's the history? Anything prevented you from following through with it? If they did have any type of suicidal thoughts or ideations, like what stopped you from going through with it? What happened to where you're still here today, even though you acted upon your suicidal thought? And then the last two parts is the summary. This is your professional summary. This is where you are gathering everything and you're looking at everything that you did in your assessment and you're putting it in a paragraph as your clinical summary. Okay, that's all the summary is. It is your clinical insight and judgment on the assessment you just did, and you're just putting everything you did into one paragraph and summarizing your assessment. So you're going to put in your summary, let me go back up. You're going to put in your summary the presenting problem, the mental health history, medical history, substance use history, family and social history, trauma, educational, daily functioning, and mental status. Okay, and if they ever had any thoughts of self-harm or harm to others. And let me just say this. You don't put verbatim. You don't put every little detail in your summary. You just put maybe like the important facts or what you feel as a, social worker, what should go in that summary. So you don't have to like put every little detail in the summary, but whatever you see that's an important fact, you need to make sure that you put and include in your summary. So the last part of the assessment is the treatment recommendations section. And that is where you are recommending services to the client that you feel that they need. But remember, you're also working collaboratively with the client to produce this section of the assessment. You're not just doing this by yourself. While you are recommending this to the client, you're going to sit there and you're going to talk to the client about, hey, I feel you can benefit from therapy, individual counseling, or hey, we have case management, we have medication management. So you're going to work collaboratively with the client to come up with a recommendation section for them, and then that's going to, go towards your treatment plan. But some of the treatment recommendations that I have here is medication management, case management, psychoeducation, therapy, of course, peer, supportive employment, anything that your agency offers, and is there for the client, and you see that the client can benefit from it, you want to make sure that you're putting that in the treatment recommendation section of the biopsychosocial assessment. Okay. And so, yeah, you guys, that's it. That's how you do a basic assessment. I hope I was able to help somebody just get the groundwork on how to do an assessment. And as you can see, it's not hard at all. I think as long as you have the experience, and some of these agencies that you work at, they even have templates that's already there that you just go by their templates and fill in what's on the templates. So I think as long as you have the experience and the training and a template to go by, it's not that hard to do an assessment. It's really not. And I would say a good assessment, well, I've been doing them for so long, but for me, it might take me maybe an hour or so to do an assessment. To do a thorough assessment, it may take me an hour or so. Maybe an hour 30. Hour 15 sometimes, depending on, the client, but I would say maybe like an hour or so, you can do an assessment, a basic assessment at least. So yeah, you guys, it's not hard at all to do an assessment. And I really feel like I wanted to make these videos just to show like maybe new social workers or social workers who want to get into assessments that it's not that hard of a thing to do. So between part 1 and part 2, it's not hard. I promise you it's not hard. And then it's kind of like the more you do it, like the more repetition you do on something, it'll get easier and you'll just be able to get through it and flow with it, and it's not even that hard to do. So you guys, that is going to be the end of this video, and I will definitely see you all in the next one.